broadcast. Okay. We are streaming, Arthur. Welcome. Welcome, Arthur. Me and Arthur here. Let's go. Let's tell them what we're doing.
I'm Arthur, this is Travis, and this is the Grail project. I've been working on this for quite a while now, probably almost a year, would you say? Maybe not quite a year. This is just a series of command line tools and Python scripts for building projects I've been steadily stitching together into an overarching framework. You can treat this kind of like Rails for Ruby, but for Python, the added benefit that you get to deploy stuff to the cloud. It's meant to be one simple command, and hopefully everything builds itself. Now, that being said, this is very much a project in development. So you're going to see here, there is a chance that not everything builds properly. But let's go ahead and start this out. To run this, you can either git clone or use Docker compose up after you get cloned. And, oh, sorry. You would want to use Docker compose up and git clone, not one or the other. Alternatively, you could use this /preset.sh, which is useful when you've lost control of the Docker daemon, which might happen in this instance because this is running sibling Docker containers, and occasionally I will be handing off control from my current user to a user inside the container. Look at the Docker file here and see it's this user app user. So let's go ahead and run this because this turns out to be the most stable way to do this. See, it's cleaning up everything in this very manual way, killing it by PIDs as opposed to Docker compose down, cleaning up everything, just making sure it's all neat, nice, and organized before we start. Get that password there. You can see it's deleting everything, and it's about to spin up a server on Docker and then bind that port to your local environment here. You see 5,000 maps to 5,000. This is where the Docker daemon gets injected into the container so that it can be used.
So you've got Docker running inside Docker, right?
Yes.
Okay, and that's because like you've evolved this, and you want to be able to, I think, run commands within this, and it was just like the cleanest way. It's kind of an evolution, I think, that got you here.
I wanted this to have minimal dependencies. I wanted you to be able to just run the thing out of the box and have it work. So I value a simple project over a complicated project, especially if that simple project does something very useful. And I figured the easiest way to reduce the dependencies was to use Docker containers. The issue here is to actually upload a project all the way to the cloud. It should probably be in some sort of an image, and I wanted to use Docker for that also, hence the need for multiple Docker containers running at the same time, some spawned from inside.
But let's back up for a second. So you're gonna run this awesome project. It should be easy to pull down. You run it. It figures out all the dependencies, and then what are we gonna do? Are you gonna talk to it? Like, are we doing like a Hello World calculator app, or what?
We're gonna do, well, right now I have it set up to test building out a framework for our mergers and acquisitions project that me and Travis and a couple other guys have been working on called Wally Beta. It's totally awesome. Definitely check that out sometime. But I could theoretically give this any sort of instructions I want. It should come up with a prototype for those instructions that I give it.
And let's pause right there. So we could give it some simple instructions, and when you say it comes up with a prototype, at first we were trying to make it write the code and structure it architected well and get it up in the cloud. I think you paired it back to like the most important scaffolding. So what would this do if it does work tonight?
This is going to give us a URL that's running completely publicly that you could ping, and it wouldn't respond with anything other than maybe an echo to build this endpoint. But all the documentation would be there. Everything would be live. You could view it, you could see it, you could interact with it, and it would be a whole code base that just kind of works online. It's meant to abstract away a lot of the difficulties of working with cloud, and it's meant to be sort of a standardized template so that you can just turn the key and watch a URL pop up, but also have full control over all the code of that underlying system in case I've missed something in the development of this right here. If we go over here, we'll see that we've got some documentation at localhost 5000. It's that /documentation. There are a couple things here, not all of which are exposed yet. The main one that I've been working with is this project quick start. So
Did it just stand this up, or is this from a previous run? Did this just happen?
Yeah, it just stood this up.
Okay, well
Now
let's
this,
let's let's pause for a second. So you were running something in the background. The Docker was coming up. You already had this set of commands. This isn't the interactive command line tool, but somewhere in a config file you have some commands or some prompts, and it decided to do what? Build this whole structure, and it just jammed this up into GCP. What just happened?
so the interactive command line tool has been getting mapped to a series of RESTful endpoints that can be accessed from any computer without having to download the entire structure of Grail. And this is the local version of that. So I'm spinning up a local server here. And on this local server, you can see project quick start. That would be a Grail command. You can quick start a project from the Grail CLI. And I'm eventually going to wrap this. So you can run a Grail command from any computer, really. That's the intention of these.
Okay. I feel like I'm still missing some interconnected pieces. So what were you running on the left, and what just got generated? This, or was this already stood up and these are some RESTful endpoints for Grail, by the way, stands for Holy Grail, because it'd be like the Holy Grail if you could just tell the computer the project you wanted and it did a lot of the work for you, or all of the work.
Yeah.
So I'd still help me connect the endpoints, because I work with you a lot, Arthur. And if someone's watching this video, I don't know if they'll connect the dots quite yet. Help me out again.
Yeah, so there's a couple things. These three up at the top here, these are functions that I just had built in the framework to kind of test in a series of increasing complexity that things can actually interact with the server. These are all Grail commands. Docker compose up, Docker compose down, project quick start, implement prototype, get billing accounts. And you'll see there's about 30 of them that are in functions that just haven't been completely exposed yet. But this is the big one. I want a big green button. You press the button, just does what it's supposed to do, and has something out of the box that fits.
You mean we're about to hit this project quick start, and just like we used to type it on the command line, what the type of program we wanted, you're going to put this in the request body of the type of project you want, and now something's going to happen.
Yes. So
okay. I got it.
Okay.
Got it. Okay, yeah. So just to rewind, like last month we just basically had a command line. It's like, hey, what's the description of your project? And you do little commands on the command line, and it would go do its work. I get it. You're just making this a little easier to use from a give it to everybody without trying to set it up in a difficult way. Here's the endpoint. So what are we? Okay, so what are we going to put here? Can you change it to like give me a scientific calculator program right here, or would that not work? Did you have to use the example of like is anything else hard baked in that you're for this particular M&A project we've been working on, or can we literally just type
I,
something simple here?
I don't think so. I haven't tested that yet. So I think maybe we should do this first and
Okay.
then we should try a calculator app just
Okay.
in case changing that or break something.
Okay.
Uh,
So you're literally the whole project description. You're just saying, give me a natural language analytics software for mergers and acquisitions, and you're just gonna that's the instruction set you're gonna give it, and it's gonna try to figure out what you want. Is that what's going on?
that's exactly what is going on.
All right.
Uh,
Okay.
so we're going to click execute here. And we can see it's
Okay. I
coming
love
up
it.
a lot of it's coming up with business requirements and use cases first before it comes up with a template for this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having it come up with a YAML that describes all the endpoints and how they map to files. And the reason I'm doing that is because I can break that up into chunks. Because you might have in a given project tens of thousands of lines of code, and that's kind of unreasonable to put in GPT's context window limit, which is, by the way, what's actually going to be generating a lot of this code on top of standard generator scripts and systems for creating templates.
Okay. So I get excited. So like I love watching logs happen. So I'm glad you have a little Grail core log, and it's just like this is it's thinking about the sentence you just gave it, building a lot of material to get the requirements right. Um, okay, interesting. And so after it generates all these requirements, which might or might not have lined up with what your original thought was, but that's what's so cool about this, right? The holy grail is you just say it's like the danger zone when like the CEO can just say out loud what program he or she wants, and then poof.
Exactly. The thing exists. It might not be perfect, but it's gonna build something.
Okay.
And yeah, if you see here, it's switched modes. It's gone out of businessman mode. It's gone out of this kind of okay, what should I do? Let's make some planning on this. Let's get some documentation and gotten into let's make some very rigid structures around how we want to actually implement this thing. You can't really tell that well from the text flying by the screen, but this is actually in a YAML format, and it's got pydantic types going across the screen that correspond to the start of Python functions.
Can you take a moment and describe what pydantic types are?
Yeah, pydantic is a type system for Python. It's a system that allows it to be faster because it doesn't have to use type origin to force ints to strings when you combine them, for example, or strings to ints, et cetera, as well as a system to help some of these other systems like Swagger and Redoc come up with documentation for this automatically. Because otherwise, we would have to go in there and say, okay, you have to ping the URL with a string here and an integer there and a floating point here. And it just saves us a lot of time.
Yeah, anything to make us lazier, really, and then let us get to the fun part, which is like making the code work. So, I don't know, I haven't thought about this. I guess Python's an interpreted kind of dynamic language, and
Yeah.
Pydantic would kind of lock it down a little bit and be very declarative of the types. And you're saying that, I hope I got that right to the world there. But basically, the net effect is the documentation could be built automatically and just make us a lot lazier and save us a lot of time.
Exactly. The other neat thing that's happening here, and I didn't come up with this This was from the people at Fast API. We can provide comments in the code as part of the documentation. It's coming up with description tags here, which will later get injected into the functions. And you're going to see those appear in the documentation when this spawns, hopefully, another server locally on port 8080, as well as deploys this to the cloud according to our Terraform configuration, which you might have seen at the beginning.
Cool. And you're kind of zoomed in. Basically, I'm watching your log real well. I just love watching like AI stream its thoughts. So basically, I don't know. So you're using some AI credit power to talk to GPT right now, I think, probably.
Yeah. In fact, what we can see here is we can already tell how this is going to prototype everything. Broken it down into data collection, pre-processing, recognition, analysis, detection, extraction, and visualization. It's chosen a strategy of coming up with one function per file. This corresponds to a file. This corresponds to a function. And it's gonna map that out in a minute. Usually it tends to do closer to 2 to 3 functions per file, but once it gets on a pattern, it's locked into that pattern. It's fully committed.
And so there's just a nice markdown language or text that we're looking at, and this is kind of its blueprint, that strategy that it's thinking about at this point.
Yeah. So we're coming up with a error here. Command failed, return code 2, error, gcloud.projects.create, bad value, acquisition lingo analyzer, get QET. Project IDs are immutable and can be set only during project creation. They must start with a lowercase letter and can have lowercase ASCII letters, digits, or hyphens.
Is this like Google Mad as you try to auto set up the project type thing?
Yeah, which is a bit strange because that seems to be in the limit, unless that's over 30 characters.
Let's count them. Let's go.
Might need to implement that. I might get to see me implement that in real time. Let's come up with a character counter.
You just want to count them. You're gonna paste it. Yeah, 30.
Yes. 32 characters.
Dang.
Okay.
All right. Well, try again, right?
Yeah, we were right there, right, just barely over the limit. I can change this out real quick. We can say that when we come up with our project ID, this is going to be 6 characters. This is just a UUID attached to the end.
Right.
But
You get 24 characters.
Yep. Let's first tack that on there, and 23 because of the dash here.
Good call.
Knowing my luck, we'd get the one string that ends up with 24 characters, thus breaking a long series of endpoints that we're pinging.
Right.
Let's try that again.
And this is old hat to everybody. I mean, that's like Copilot helping you write that little line of code. I just love Copilot.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're going to have to go through this whole process again because caching mechanisms aren't in place yet. They are for building the image. You won't have to run ./preset or Docker compose up again. But as far as the actual NLP generation, that has to be run again. You can also see here that I'm working on breaking this down into some functions here.
Yeah, don't worry about optimizing that yet. Hey, it's the way it is. Ideally, if it's a long process that you orchestrate and something's could break, I would love to have like those little save points in video games where you could at least I reached milestone 3. I'll just start there again.
Yeah. which can kind of get an idea of what we're actually doing here. So here's our chat completions, which are using exponential backoff in order to connect to OpenAI and not run into the issue of error server overload, which it does tend to do a lot because they are using a lot of compute and we need to help them a little bit so that they can balance it properly by
Right.
timing out occasionally.
And I mean, just real quick to iterate that. In other words, we hit OpenAI. If they're overloaded, wait 25 milliseconds. If they're overloaded, wait 50 milliseconds until we're just calling it less frequently, and they're happier with us.
Exactly. And if we go to the next one, that's one of the more exciting ones. This is the actual function call that is generating the sort of series of business propositions and YAML structure that dictates how this is going to be set up. So we got another one here. Yeah, and as you can see, data collection has one endpoint, but data preprocessing, that has 4. NLP analysis has 4, and results presentation has 3, which would map a little bit closer to something that I'm used to developing. That being said, it is fine to have this set up however you like. And you should be able to break that down into the individual components of generate this sort of an architecture and the component of consume that architecture to prototype the thing. Because occasionally you might have some stuff in here that you don't need or some stuff in here that doesn't make sense. It's trying its best, but it's not perfect. Going back to our services, we have scaffold. And the way scaffold works is it takes in each of the lines of that JSON, each of the functions, and it creates a sort of a function for it and a class for it, which get automatically exposed through this autocontroller file here. We have this init file. This is helping bind the models to the services. The model builder is what is actually writing stuff to the project here, the service builder as well. This is classes and functions respectively. And title extractor is what's coming up with that title that we just saw was a little bit long the other minute. And on top of that, we have the deployment functions, which are billing accounts from GCP. We have our implement prototype, which is a wrapper for several of these components, and project quick start, which connects this wrapper to a series of gcloud and Terraform commands to push this up into the cloud, as well as stage it locally with this compose up command. Ooh.
Got another error down there, huh?
And uh-oh. Well, no, it's still moving along.
That's good.
But it does make me a little bit nervous about what it's about to do. Let's go ahead and check out the actual nest, see if it started to build these services. Yeah, so you can see here, data collection, data pre-processing, NLP analysis, and results presentation should have gotten mapped to these various different models. I'm not quite sure why these wouldn't be found. So here they are right here. Since I can't find them there either, I can find test models. Generate some reference.
Well, at the minimum, it's cool to see it writing the code out, and we have had some success with basically an entire generative architecture doing a lot of this heavy lifting and actually connecting the code. But obviously, got a little work to do, and it's a complicated problem in some ways, but exciting. So we're about to run out of our free Zoom meeting anyway, and I got to wrap this up. So, what besides this code that may not be quite connected because it can't, you see errors and things, you might be able to just stop Visual Studio and bring it back up. Maybe it'd suddenly connect all the code. I don't know. But what can you go show us on the Google Cloud project that?
I can show you this project in a minute that might be, we made some progress. I don't know if it's just ignoring the errors or doing something else, but.
Is this uploading something or what?
Yeah, it's decided to go on to the next step. It's just taking a quick break to load everything. It's setting up Terraform.
Okay.
It's scanning. Creation complete after 3 seconds.
I love watching this stuff. So exciting.
Okay.
So tell me what it's doing. Run service. So has this already been uploaded as a Google project and it's just trying to spin it up, or what's it doing?
Yeah, so if we look here, see if we can find, I don't remember looking out quite what it was tagged with, but we should be able to see in the logs earlier. Should have seen some G-Cloud things first. Amanda-NLP Insights. So that should be this one right here that's trying to interact with.
Okay. So what would happen if you go to the GCP site? Would you see anything yet?
I mean, this isn't technically a website. This is just a project with a billing account and a container image attached to it. It needs to be connected to, this is Cloud Run, which is serverless containers, and mapped to a URL. And that's kind of what Terraform is trying to do right now. Oh, okay. All right. So it looks like we did get back a URL. See here in the response body. See if this URL actually looks anything. That's not what I wanted to do. Copy.
Whoops.
Anything like what we're looking for. Cool. So that says detail not found. So it is running Swagger. Let's
Nice.
go to documentation. And there we go. Collect data, clean text, remove stopwords, tokenize, lematize. All of this stuff should correspond to all of this stuff.
Sweet, dude.
And we got our descriptions right there. Yeah, everything seems to be. Let's see if we got
slow down just
model.
Slow down just a little bit. Let's just see one of the descriptions of something. It's going by too fast for me. Let's look
entity recognition extracts and classifies key entities from the text, such as companies, financial metrics, and geographic locations. These are switched. That is an error in the autocontroller that I've yet to patch. You should input something like Apple Inc. is an American and multinational company, blah, 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 in this example value here. And you should get back a string.
Got it. So how about Echo or anything? Can you show that any code is up in the cloud alive?
Yeah, let's see if
you do have an Echo function.
Echo test. We should be able to copy that button. Copy hello world, try it out, response hello world, execute that, and we got a response. Hello world. Just to
Excellent.
prove that that's
Great job, man.
yeah.
Wow, it looks like you did a lot of work in a short amount of time. That's the whole goal of AI, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So let's go look at echo test in the code over here.
Sure. Echo test was actually not generated.
Or
Echo test is just a template to test that there's things on the cloud that we're tapping into.
okay.
This is just a template that I gave it.
Okay, well,
using
let's
this.
look at how about a piece of code that it did generate. Can we take a look at how deep it goes?
Sure.
I mean, it's not very deep, but what it does.
Yeah, so it's, for example, came up with export data, description of what it should do, generate summary, descriptions, all of this stuff, and then it's come up with these parameters here, as well as some examples for what you want to put in the parameters to get things to work. It should be the same for all of these. It's come up with some imports that you might need, although it has repeated these, unfortunately. We're going to work on that. That should be able to be reprocessed out, hopefully with regex or something. And yeah.
Cool. Well, we have less than a minute before the stream stops, so it's been great. Part one, looking at this, and we'll try to come back and keep everybody updated on the project. Thanks, Arthur.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Okay.
All right, I'm gonna stop stream, man. We'll do this again.
All right. Good. I'm glad it's working.
That's great. That's awesome. So much work. I'm excited. Okay, see you soon.
Right, y'all.